Former member of the National Security Advisory Board, Alka Acharya, says don't make a big deal out of this. Andrew K.P. Leung says India and China have diplomatic meetings, sort this out. Brigadier Mahalingam says it's a pure provocation. Seshadri Chari says don't make a mistake of 1962. Maruf Raza, I'd like your take first. You know, this whole argument that this keeps happening. Intrusions keep happening. Do you buy that argument? Is this yet another intrusion?
Well, no, Arnab, this is certainly not yet another intrusion. Intrusions have taken place and by Chinese patrols, and sometimes even our patrols go, as far as our claim line, but Chinese patrols intrude and go back. Please understand that this is a very structured, designed military operation. In military terms, these are called probing operations, and you check what the ability of the adversary is to respond. The last time an intrusion of this nature took place was around 1986 in Sumdrangchu, around Arunachal Pradesh. And the Indian military commanders at that time, General Sundarji in Delhi and General Narhari, GOC 33 Corps, decided to respond aggressively. And there are ways you can respond aggressively without going into a confrontation mode to convey to China that we are not going to take this lying down.
Right.
The government at that time was also a Congress government, and they were wanting to de-escalate the situation, as is being the case now. But the Indian Army commanders dug their heels in and said, no way. And it worked in our favor because the Chinese finally got the message and pulled back. I can't see one platoon, and a platoon is only 30 to 35 people, why it is holding our whole Indian Army's Northern Command to ransom. You can have at least 4 times the number of troops by just putting a company plus out there, surrounding them because they are deep inside Indian territory.
And cut them off.
Well beyond what is their claim line and not our claim.
Will that, Maruf, just one.
Yes, and
there will be some like Alka Acharya, I presume, who will say. There will be some like Alka Acharya who will say, Maruf, that don't take this to a flashpoint. Take it easy with the Chinese.
No, Arnab, see, the point I'm trying to make, the point I'm trying to make is, this is how the Chinese government tests the response of the government in Delhi. There is a new administration in Beijing, and they're wanting to start a new relationship with India, but also check to what extent they can put their luck with India on the LAC. Now, so the Indians, now some people say this is just a tactical activity. If it's tactical, then deal with it on the tactical front, but still talk to them diplomatically say that, listen, we are ready to club your troops down, surround them, and give them a punishment if they have done something without Beijing's orders.
Yes,
if they've done something with Beijing's orders, then Delhi should take it up. Delhi should take it up and tell Beijing that enough is enough. You have to put this on the agenda of the visiting Chinese Prime Minister's visit to India and say that it's about time, 50 years down the line after 1962, that we accept each other's lines and we move further beyond these aimless border talks, 15 or 16 of which have taken place, and the Chinese are not even accepting Indian maps.
Yes,
and Chinese are not even accepting Indian maps. And what are we talking to them about?
Let's get the other side. Alka Acharya, the Chinese argument is rubbish. The Indian side has calculated that the patrol is 10 kilometers inside India's claim line. Even going by the Chinese perception of what it claims to be the border, the platoon is camped 2 to 3 kilometers inside our territory, as per reports. So this is not accidental, this is deliberate and well planned. How should we respond?
Yes. I think there's already been a response, Mr. Goswami. If you see, the Indian government has summoned the Chinese envoy and they have made their position very clear, and that is to be communicated to the Chinese government. And I see. What is the kind of response you have in mind?
Ms. Acharya, you are aware that these 2 meetings which happened, now 15th the incident happened, right? 16th we raised it, first time, where Joint Secretary spoke to the Director General Border on the other side. Nothing happened. There was a flag meeting set up on the 18th. Nothing happened, right? After that, another conversation, another flag meeting happened some time back. Nothing happened. Ms. Acharya, what you are saying is action, is nothing but, I'm sorry to say, it sounds like we are begging the Chinese to please kindly move out. And they have told us we are not moving out. So now in that situation, what should be our action?
See, I am not privy to what exactly is happening between the Chinese and the Indians.
No, this is the stated MEA position.
I am trying to look at the situation as a... all right, so the point is that at this moment we have a difference of opinion, and it has to be resolved that the Indians have to make it very clear to the Chinese that what has happened has gone much
But we have made it clear, Ms. Acharya. We have made it clear, we have cajoled, we have requested, we made the phone calls, and their message is very simple. This is our land. You have heard what they've said. They say, Seshadri Chari, let me get you in. They have said this is our land. And we are not budging. That's where the situation now stands. So it's quite critical, Mr. Chari.
Arnav, it's a very serious matter. It's a very critical matter, because if you see, if you ask any military strategist, he will tell you this is a very strategic area which links Pakistan, China, India, Russia, and the entire trade route in that northern region. So from strategic point of view, it is very important. From the military point of view, till 2010, this area was under the surveillance of the Indian Army. In 2010, it was transferred to ITBP. Now, very strangely, as you very well know, ITBP does not come under Ministry of Defence, it comes under Home Ministry. Now, since when did the Home Ministry take charge of border management, and that too a border management of such a strategic area? And the most important point here is, now the Chinese incursion happened on the 14th night, and we came to know on the 15th morning.
Yes.
That means obviously we did not have night vision equipment.
No, we didn't.
Did the ITBP had any equipment?
They moved in.
Who was the person in charge at that time? Was he, see, if had it been with the army would have placed a major general or a major rank officer there. But ITBP does not have it. Did any IB fellow went there? Did anybody go to that area? And the most important element in this whole thing is, for the last 6-7 months, there has been probably a secret circular that media has not been allowed to go anywhere near the border areas.
Even now obviously, they are not being allowed to go.
Not been reported.
Yes.
Even now they are not being allowed. So what is happening? So is there a conspiracy within the Ministry of Defence to make an underhand deal? And next month, as Maruf very rightly pointed out, the Chinese Prime Minister is visiting India, and obviously he is going to have his own agenda, and he wants the Arunachal Pradesh issue, the Tibet issue to be on the agenda.
And he's opening a second front.
Is this a quid pro quo?
Yes, no, he's opening,
a bargain point?
Which is why I'm very sorry to say this, but I don't know why those who want India to go soft are not seeing the writing on the wall. The Chinese are smart. The Chinese believe in the philosophy of war by stealth. This is war by stealth. Open up a second front with India. Put the pressure on India. And having put the pressure, then say negotiate Arunachal on our terms. This is principally the Chinese design here.
I want to bring one point. Arnab, may I just bring in one point in support of what Mr. Seshadri Chari has said, and I've said that earlier also, that China is traditionally known, even with neighbors with which it has good relations, and I don't think it has honky-dory relations with India. Even with neighbors it has good relations, it encroaches on their land, it encroaches on the water flow in those neighboring areas, and then expects over a period of time this becoming a standard operating procedure because the neighbors don't respond. So the pointed issue is that unless we become a little more aggressive with our diplomacy, and I'm sorry to say right now our diplomatic corps and our foreign policy is not just up to mark to put India in the strategic space as a potential power in the region.
Absolutely.
Because we don't seem to have aggressiveness as a point of diplomatic dialogue. We are just going to go by the normal procedures. That we meet their spokesperson, we give out statements, big deal, that means nothing. You have to, if you are a country that has some respect and you have a strategic weight, then you have to let people know that your borders are not to be transgressed, period.
No, I think we've taken this whole business of being a soft power too seriously. The point here is this, Brahma Chelani wrote in the Mint, and I'd like to quote this, it's not Andrew K.P. Leung is the independent China specialist from our studios in Hong Kong. Mr. Leung, a lot of Indian analysts have tried to understand how does China work. And I think Brahma Chelani puts it brilliantly when he writes in an Indian newspaper. He says, since the Mao era, China has adhered to the ancient theorist Sun Tzu's advice, which is that the ability to subdue the enemy without any battle is the ultimate reflection of its most supreme strategy. And as you would know, Sun Tzu also said, all warfare is based on deception. What is happening, Andrew KP Leung, is deception, which China is doing right now. My question to you is this. The agreement between the government of the Republic of India and the government of the People's Republic of China on confidence building says very clearly, Article 2, no activities of either side shall overstep the line of actual control. Article 5 talks about preventing air intrusions along the line of actual control. Why have these intrusions then happened?
Well, first of all, China doesn't operate only by the book. Everybody puts a lot of emphasis on the Sun Tzu's art of war, but I think that the whole country's foreign policy is not dictated by that book. That's point number one. Point number two, as for the line of control, that's precisely the bone of contention. What is the line of control according to both countries? There is a dispute. And so I think the third point is that what is perceived to be an incursion is not the first time and is not going to be the last until both countries come to negotiate a permanent settlement. And I think that the forthcoming visit of the Chinese leader is a very good opportunity. And then the settlement is not going to be limited. It's not going to be useful to be limited only in that particular area of Jammu and Kashmir, but other border disputes with China as well.
Are you saying,
so
Mr.
you come
Leung,
up with a grand settlement?
Are you saying, Mr. Leung? No, Mr. Leung. You're talking about a grand settlement, but are you saying then, Mr. Leung, that this entire confidence building measures which were signed between your government and our government should now be burnt? They should be thrown into the dustbin? Because I quote from that agreement. Does China have no respect for that agreement? In that agreement it says, 1 minute, it says pending an ultimate solution. Now let me read more of the agreement, Mr. Leung. Pending an ultimate solution to the boundary question, the two sides reaffirm their commitment to strictly respect and observe the line of actual control in the India-China border areas. Maruf, am I wrong? This is pending a resolution. Maruf, this point was made pending a resolution.
I mean, you're spot on, but the point... Yeah, but the point is also that you must add a footnote to that, and that is that, you know, we have not moved forward beyond this because the Chinese haven't even accepted all the maps that the Indians have submitted to the Chinese as our claim line. Now, the point is that if Mr. Leung is suggesting that both sides must come to an agreement when? In 200 years down the line? And that is how the Chinese philosophers and governments have recommended, that keep talking till the cows come home. When will they?
Mr. Leung, respond.
Not in our lifetimes. We've got to move.
Let Mr. Leung respond to you, Maruf.
Forward, and we have not moved forward because the Chinese are not willing, and no, there's a larger issue for the Chinese which is troubling them. They want India to acknowledge Chinese suzerainty over Tibet, and India is unwilling to do that, and therefore Chinese will keep needling us. Remember, the Chinese were able to settle their borders with Russia very quickly when they realized they couldn't arm twist Russia beyond a point. And we've been dragging on for more than 50 years, and both sides haven't even
I think
dotted lines on the map. What are we talking about?
We're getting two hands up. Alka, I'm coming to you. Professor Alka, we're seeing Brigadier Mahalingam also come in. Andrew KP Leung, first, would you like to respond to that? Maruf throws it back. He said the Chinese want to keep this permanently on the slow burner.
I think the first point I would like to make is to respond to that to the question about whether China is abiding by the agreement. Of course, as my colleague was pointing out, China wants to abide by the agreement. Obviously, otherwise China would lose a great deal of credibility. But then the point of contention, the bone of contention still remains as to where the border lines, because there is a huge dispute.
Sir, but there is an agreement. Then the talks. Mr. Leung, if it's going to be decided by force, if it's going to be decided by force, then let the talks be called off. Either there should be talks.
No,
because these transgressions, Mr. Leung, are a violation of the written agreement that we are having talks based upon an agreement that we will not violate the line of actual control while we have the talks, Mr. Leung. Brigadier Mahalingam also wants to come in. Andrew K.P. Leung, Brigadier Mahalingam, defense analyst, wants to make a point to you from our studios in Delhi. Go ahead.
First of all, Mr. Leung says that the line of actual control is disputed. It is a line. And I cannot understand, today in the newspapers it says that the intrusion has taken place anything between 10 and 18 kilometers. That means, is that line so very thick that they can violate it by 10 to 18 kilometers? Number one. Secondly, he says this dispute is to be settled. The Chinese president recently has gone on record to say that this is going to take a long time. I would like to ask why? Why should it take such a long time? Thirdly, as rightly pointed out by Maruf Raja, the question of exchanging the exact location of the LAC as per each other's perception was to take place, and this was skirted by the Chinese. And lastly but not the least, the special representative who was sort of put in place to go into the details of the border dispute, their role has been diluted and they have been told to look into the entire matter of India-Chinese relations. Therefore, I am doubting whether the Chinese are really interested in sorting out this problem now, or they want to delay it till further and keep it as a needle to keep pricking as and when they want. Lastly, I also would like to mention that what has happened now, it is they have disputed the status quo of the situation which has been there
exactly in a deliberate and well thought manner, by land, by sea and by air.
It is a clear, militarily it is a clear action by the sub-military commander to go in and recce the area, number one. See, push
the boundary.
Whom he had ordered to go and put his tents at a particular place, whether he is in place or not, and to see if there is any Indian build-up on the other side. These are all well orchestrated.
Alka Acharya disagrees. Alka Acharya disagrees. Alka Acharya disagrees with the majority view that this could not have happened without the political leaderships.
No, this is not.
Without the political leaderships, go ahead. Yes, Dr. Acharya.
Mr. Goswami, the problem is that you bring me in here and you have 5 people who are making a huge point very loudly, and that is the majority view, and therefore that prevails. I don't understand. I mean, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about a situation that has arisen between 2 countries who are attempting to sort out one of the longest and the most complex borders in the world? Are we now looking at the process that these 2 countries have been engaged in ever since 1993, when the first major agreement was signed, 1996, 2003, 2005? These are all landmark events between 2 countries who have fought a war and who are trying to now sort out the problem from a very different perspective.
We are talking about what happened on the 15th of April.
Just hang on.
We're talking about what happened on the 15th of April.
Mr. Goswami, let me just... What happened on the 15th of April cannot be seen in isolation from the current situation, which is that we do not have an mutually accepted line of control. So this problem in 15th of April, as with many others before it, is inherent in the nature of the situation that exists on the ground today. And a line does not mean that...
Miss Acharya.
No, it's not acceptable.
No, Miss Acharya.
Miss Acharya, a line does not mean that you can just cross it at... It's not
Miss Acharya. Miss Acharya.
What we have is a map on which a...
Miss Acharya, with all respect, obviously there is a context, and I can equally argue that since April, if I look at the latest statistics of April 2013, there have been 600 border violations by China along the LOC since 2010. I'm not even getting into that. I am simply talking today the simple question this entire country is asking. The suddenness and nature of the Chinese operation. They enter the Pangong Lake, I have 20 boats go in, they do a detailed recce on the Indian side, their helicopters come in, they provide air cover, and immediately their platoon moves in, pitches their tents. supply lines are opened up, and then they refuse to talk to the Indians. That's the situation. Now, 20 years of talking, 20 years of talking, 20 years of talking, Ms. Acharya, will not negate that fact.
As I said right at the beginning, as I said right at the beginning, that this is a unprecedented situation, and therefore the two governments have got into action. I mean, at least I see a process at work, and I do believe that diplomatic process should be given precedence before we move on to other kind of possibilities.
No, nobody's talking about other possibility. We are talking about the gravity of the situation, Seshadri Chari.
Of course you are.
We are talking about the gravity of the situation.
I think it is very necessary to understand the gravity of the situation.
Means that you do
this is not a surprise move, and this is neither a surprise move,
but the point
nor
is that we have a range of options.
No, this is not a surprise move, and this is not something that has to be seen in isolation. It's very correct, as Ms. Alka Acharya says, it is not to be seen in isolation, because this is not an incident that has happened just yesterday. This is part of a very long strategy, because this decision is not a local decision. This decision has been taken by the highest authority, that is the Central Military Commission. And listen. The Central Military Commission, which comes under PLA, is under the President. The party is under the President of China. The government is under the President of China. And therefore, it directly goes to the President of China, who has very recently met our Prime Minister. And this is always a strategy on the part of the Chinese, just as they did in 1959, and then they took over part of Tibet. And then in 1962 they mounted an aggression in a similar fashion without firing even a bullet. If they can easily intrude into India and put you on a totally defensive position with absolutely no options, I think this is a situation that they have created for us, and therefore we have to look for a way out of this situation. There cannot be a normalization of relations on the basis of what China has done.
No, right now, Mr. Chari,
the gravity of the situation.
The gravity of the situation is immense. However, right now, Mr. Chari, New Delhi seems to be completely confused. They want the media to look the other way. They literally would not want the media to report the facts on the ground. But why should we not dismiss this intrusion? Andrew K.P. Leung, Maruf knows better, as do Brigadier Ramalingam, the strategic dimension. The fact is, this intrusion, Maruf, has taken place at Daulat Beg Oldi, where India established a landing strip during the 1962 war. Can you tell our viewers, Maruf, why the area where the Chinese intruded is so significant that if there was to be a confrontation tomorrow, if we lose this area, we'll be at a huge disadvantage?
Well, Arnab, there are several advantages that area offers. I mean, please also remember that apart from India having established an airstrip in Daulat Beg Oldi in the 60s, India has reactivated that as one of the airfields which looks towards the China-Tibet front. So Daulat Beg Oldi is one of those airfields that the Indian Air Force has activated about a year and a half ago. But more importantly, China is looking at conveying the following messages. Firstly, it can intrude and Delhi wouldn't respond, and if Delhi doesn't respond, this has been Chinese strategy all over the world to acquire territory and then eventually claim it as a part of its claim line. Let me also draw an analogy, as Mr. Seshadri Chari has said, not just with 62, but more with the Kargil conflict, where the Pakistanis intruded in the hope of challenging the LAC and the LOC. And the last point I wish to make is that please read a recent cover story in The Economist, where it feels that India's political leadership lacks the strategic vision to take India into the great power status, because we continue to harp on old and tired lines of diplomacy. With due respects to Ms. Alka Acharya, whose knowledge of Sino-Indian relations is perhaps much greater than mine, but let me just question one of her claims, that we've had landmark agreements with China. What have those landmark agreements led to? That China doesn't even recognize the maps that we are putting forward, and we are calling them landmark agreements. We are talking about it being a tactical move by some Chinese troops. If it's a tactical move, let us deal with it at the tactical level. Get the military commander on the spot, the brigade commander, and tell him you've got 48 hours to kick those guys out. If you want to deal with it at diplomatic level, then let's raise it between Delhi and Beijing. What we are doing is, remember, China went into Vietnam in 1979 to teach them a lesson, and China learnt many lessons themselves. It's about time China learns a lesson that you cannot keep
China had no answers.
Indian territory.
And China had no answers.
Will passively look on.
And China had no answers when Vietnam stared it back. The fact is, Andrew K.P. Leung, India, a large part of the Indian establishment has understood the Chinese game. My question to you is, if tomorrow clearly the Chinese are told, move out, don't compromise the peace that exists between us. Are you saying that it is your assessment that the Chinese will tell the Indians, we will stay, whatever the cost? Is that the Chinese point of view?
No, I don't think that. Well, I think that's the very point. There is a lack of trust in India of China's intentions. And you've got to understand what China really wants. There is no point for China to have a very confrontational international environment, because that would impinge upon the internal situation in China, the stability of the China's economy, for example. So China wants basically largely a peaceful kind of environment. But on the other hand, China is very sensitive about its territorial integrity or territorial claims. So I think that because these kind of conflicts, that's not the first time. It's going to be repeated forever and forever until you come up with a grand settlement. So what I was suggesting in the beginning is that they're taking advantage of this new leadership in China, and then both sides would come to the table and negotiate a final settlement, not only the territorial disputes in that particular area, but also in, for example, in the in other large areas between China and India.
Seshadri wants to say something.
Let me make one very important point.
Okay, let him make a point.
Which is that if you look at China, the most important thing is not India. The most important thing for China is the kind of a kind of rivalry between a rising power, China, and the United States. And then a lot of the problems have arisen since the American pivot to Asia. So I think that China is extremely worried about that, because that would impact on the security of China's energy transportation around the South China Sea and so on, and through the Indian Ocean. That's why you got to understand what China wants. It's the national security, and of which the Indian side of the issue is only part of the problem.
Mr. Leung, I understand it's a complicated global environment, and you have your global aspirations. But then, for God's sake, Mr. Leung, why do you have to make 50 of your soldiers enter 10 kilometers across the LAC, pitch a tent, fly your helicopters, and also send your night patrols into our side of the Pangong Lake? You don't have to do that. You also have a lot at stake. Brigadier Mahalingam wants to say something to you. Brigadier Mahalingam, 1 second.
Arnab, in this process, we are camouflaging the intentions of the Chinese. We must understand the geography of the area. If you look at the area, immediately to the northwest is the Sasgam Valley, which has been given to the Chinese by the Pakistanis. Now there the Chinese workforce is working there, and if my assessment goes correct, they are building a road which will link the port, Gwadar port. The point that is happening is the Chinese interest in that area is growing. Therefore, we have to see the POK aspect of it. The China, by investing its money in that area, is trying to become a third claimant as far as the dispute between India and Pakistan is concerned.
The short point is,
we have to read this very clearly.
The short point, Seshadri Chari, let me get you in. Short point is, we cannot afford to just sit back now anymore. We have to have an aggressive strategy vis-a-vis the Chinese.
No, the most important element here is this whole area should be reverted back to the Indian Army, and or the ITBP could be probably be, like the Kargil report very rightly mentioned, should be brought under the Army, number one. Number two, we will have to put a border security management architecture into place, and there should be coordination between the MOD and all other units as far as this areas are concerned. Unfortunately, we don't have a border security management policy at all. Even after 62 till 2013, we have not been able to put in place a strong policy mechanism, and this policy mechanism should be directly dealt with by the MOD.
Yes.
And it should also include certain think tanks and experts who are not part of the government, but who are readily available to the government of India to give all kinds of advice on these matters.
No, I totally agree with you, but
this government doesn't seem to be very serious.
As I thank all my guests, just a cautionary note, another point also to the Ministry of External Affairs. Today there was a press conference at the Ministry of External Affairs, and the most surprising and shocking fact was that the ministry spokesperson was very happy to take an endless number of questions about the foreign minister's visit to Moscow, but seemed cagey, deflecting and unsure for a very long time while taking questions on China. I think the Ministry of External Affairs should adopt greater transparency, honesty and directness when it deals with journalists on such an important issue. That's to the MEA spokesperson. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for talking about that very important and worrying development on our first Newhsour Debate. Thank you.